prepare the way. All these people make straight a path. For Yeshua's coming back, so we lift up as the mighty host. Hosanna, hallelujah.
Here we go. This is our first interview for a testimony from Jennifer. She is going to kind of run through her testimony from front to back, from kid to adult to lost to confused, and all the way to finding Yahuah. And I think it's important to cover these topics to let other people know that it's going to be okay. You can come out of the things that you're doing and that you were doing, whether your life was good, bad, or ugly. At the end of the day, we're all falling short, and I think it's important to have a discussion on people's paths out of the darkness and into the light. And we're going to start with Jennifer, and then we'll do me next. But I think Jennifer's is going to be information packed, and we're going to just go step by step. And I may ask a couple questions, but we're going to try to push straight through her story and try our hardest not to tear up at times. And
when he says that, he's speaking of me.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, let's just start right away. There's no reason to wait.
Well, I want to say, like, I don't want to say like a disclaimer, but just there are people who may watch our videos that have been through much, much worse. And there are people who may watch our videos that have been through similar situations, or people who haven't been through as much. But each person has their own walk and has their own story. And I used to be really embarrassed and ashamed. And while these things are shameful, I'm not ashamed anymore of what I did and where I come from. I'm whole. And so I guess with that being said, I'll go ahead and start. So I am the second born to my mom and dad. They had my sister, and when she was about 8 years old, they had me. There was a miscarriage in between, and after that, my mom was told she couldn't have any other kids, so they didn't expect me. So that's always a fun story. My dad was disabled, and my mom worked a lot because my dad was disabled, and it took him a while to get him on disability. We moved. Well, before I get into that, we moved a lot when I was a kid. So we moved from Florida to Missouri, where he went to seminary. For a while, he didn't ever get his degree in seminary, but he did go there. And then we moved to Colorado, and then back to Missouri. When his health started feeling really bad, we were forced to go to a different climate and a different air thing. So we moved back to Missouri. But anyway, he was an official Southern Baptist ordained minister. So I grew up in the churches, going to church Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings, Wednesday nights, Friday night youth nights, Saturday lock-ins, you name it, we were there. My parents they tried to help in the churches as much as they could. They tried to do what was right in those sort of scenarios. But behind closed doors, it was kind of a very different situation than what they presented outwardly. So while I was in the churches, we skipped around to different churches. So while I was in there as a child and young teenager, I saw a lot of things that really kind of struck me wrong. There's a lot of good too. But as an adult, just kind of looking back at the different situations, it's kind of eye-opening. There was one church where the music minister stole over $1 million from the church.
Whoa.
And he
like embezzlement?
Yes, he embezzled $1 million from the church. Well, I don't know. I was a kid. I was told it was $1 million. It could have been $100,000, but it was a very, very great sum of money. Okay, so when I say $1 million, I don't have facts and figures. I was a child. That's what I was told. But he stole so much that they made him leave the church. And before he left the church, he was required to come in front of the congregation and confess. And it was really sad because I was actually really close to his wife. She was the secondary music person of that church, and so she gave like all the kids music lessons and stuff, so I was really close with her, so that was really sad.
Was she part of it?
she had no idea.
Oh,
So she was very embarrassed and sad and angry, rightfully so. And that's just observation as a child. I was like maybe 10 years old. I also saw a pastor who only visited people because he was the pastor, and at this point, my dad's an associate pastor at this other church, right? So we hung out quite a bit with him and his wife.
pastors stick together.
They do. Um, but anyway, his wife was the secretary and kept track of all the finances of the church, and he would only go visit the people in the hospitals that were paying money to the church. So like if you didn't have money to pay to the church, he wouldn't like go visit you and pray for you in the hospital and stuff like that. And because of that, that's why my parents left that church. They tried to get him.
Good on them.
They tried to get him to shape up, and he didn't do it. So they ended up leaving that church. There was another church that I went to as a teenager where the associate youth minister, so like the secondary over the youth, he dated the youth girls, including me. I was 15 and he was 22, and one of the other girls before me was 16, and then the girl after me was 14, and they ended up getting married quite some time later.
Well, hold on. Let's back up.
Yeah.
Did your dad know about?
So my dad, the way my dad handled this is after we had left the churches, which I'll get into in a minute, but I decided to go back on my own. But my parents had kind of been out of the churches as I had been for a little over a year at this point, maybe 2 years. He knew, so my friends invited me to go to church, and I said, okay, why not? It's something to do. And then I actually got involved with it, and I thought it was fun, and I was like, okay, church isn't as bad as I remember, or whatever, you know. But yeah, so my dad knew that I was seeing the youth minister, and he told me it wasn't a good idea, and that I didn't need to see him because he was a lot older than I was. He's like, look, I respect his position and stuff in the church, but that doesn't mean that he's right for you or whatever. I was a very headstrong teenager. I didn't really do any bad things as a teenager, but I was really headstrong, and I was going to do basically, when it came to dating, I was going to do opposite of what my parents said. So they just kind of like went, just kind of pretended it didn't bother them, I guess, and let me make up my own mind, which I did eventually break it off. You know, I was like, you're 22 and you live in your mama's house and you're dating girls that are 7 years younger than you. Like, what's wrong with you? You know?
Well, and then you just said he ended up marrying one of them, right?
Yeah, she was actually one of my friends that had invited me to go to the church. But there was a very obvious connection there. So when he and I were dating, I was just like, her or me, bro, because I see you like her, you know, but you need to choose. And then when her dad found out that, I guess they started dating after I broke up with him, but her dad found out and shipped her off to her mom's house in another state. And then she came back as an adult and they got married. So I don't know if they ever quit talking during that time. I don't know, because we lost touch for quite a few years. So, but anyway,
Did the pastor know about it? Like the main pastor of the church?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I know that the youth minister, the head youth minister, he knew about
yeah,
it.
'cause he was secondary. I got you.
So he knew about it, and he told him basically to knock it off, but he didn't knock it off. And as far as I'm aware, he didn't get any repercussions. But there was no like sex involved, but he was very sexual, if that makes sense.
Well, he's 22. He's
Right, yeah.
messing with a bunch of kids.
Right. So it just got to a point where it was a little uncomfortable for me, and then added to that all the other things that I previously stated. I was just like,
Wow.
yeah, I can't.
Welcome back to church. How long was the in between no church and the family and then going back with your friends?
Like I said, about a year and a half, 2 years.
So you've been out
something
for
like
a couple
that.
years from
Yeah.
the Saturday or the Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday.
Yeah, we'd been out for a while. After the last church where my dad was friends with the pastor, they didn't find any other churches they really wanted to go to, and I wasn't really interested in going anymore either. because all of my friends were at that previous church, and I was like, I don't really want to. I was really shy, kind of like I was really outgoing, but shy at making friends, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't. But anyway.
I understand.
But this was also after my dad, like I said, he was disabled, and he got really sick when I was 14 and almost died. And I had told my dad when he got out of the hospital that, like, because God allowed him to get so sick and almost took him from me, because we were really close, that I was like an atheist. And then I decided, well, I can't be mad at something that doesn't exist, so I guess I'm just an agnostic that thinks God doesn't give a crap, you know? So, but that made my dad cry, and then that made me feel really bad. But it was probably a year or so after that that I started going to this other church with my friends. Anyway, so kind of moving subjects to get away from the churches for a minute and back to the testimony. My parents did a bunch of really good things. Like I said, they housed kids that like got kicked out of their houses. So we had kids kind of in and out of the house. They were always good with kids. So I always remember, and when I say kids, I mean like teenagers, mostly. So anywhere between like 13 to 17, we'd always have kids kind of in and out of the house, including at one point like my sister's boyfriends or my boyfriends that got kicked out of their houses or whatever. And they helped out families that were in need. So they were really good about, bringing meals to people if they didn't have food, or giving them rides places if they needed rides and they had the availability to do that. So they were really good about that. But on the flip side, again, that's what was going on the outside. On the inside, it was a really different story. My parents fought a lot, and by that I mean like my dad mostly would instigate fights. I'm not saying that my mom didn't raise her voice at times or whatever, but my dad was just really not what he presented to the outside world. So it's a really confusing thing even as an adult. Like, I'm almost 40, and it's really confusing to put the two people together in one person. And he was really abusive in all manner. So physically, at points sexually, mentally, he could be really, really abusive. He was manipulative. And it's odd to say that because, again, like I said, we were really, really close. So to know and witness and see those things, and just as a child, how did I block that out and just only see like the good? I think that's what every kid does, is they just see the good in their parents.
Yeah.
As an adult, it's been a little harder to adjust to that idea. But the most important thing is that they didn't. My dad, who was supposed to be a Southern Baptist minister, and my mom didn't read the Bible at home. Very, very rarely. I remember only one time that my dad tried to do a Bible study with me, and that was when I was seeing the youth minister guy, and he like tried to do Bible studies with me at that point, and I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested in doing that with you. So it faded. I was respectful, so I sat there for the duration of whatever he wanted to study. It lasted a few months, and then he just fizzled out, and we never really read the Bible again after that at home. Which also, again, is a confusing conundrum, because you would think that a minister or a pastor who's leading people would be studying his Bible, but he was just kind of leaning on what he learned in seminary and going from there. And he would study for his sermons if and when he had one, but at this point we weren't going to churches, so he wasn't doing sermons anymore, so there wasn't, I guess, a need to study the Bible in his eyes. I don't know.
Well, and you said he didn't actually graduate either, right?
No, but he did get so ordination and a degree are like two different things in the Southern Baptist eyes. So ordination is when you say that you have been called by God to do something, and then the elders like approve you.
Gotcha.
For God's orders, basically. Versus a degree just basically says that you have studied everything to
you be qualified.
Yeah.
I got you.
So they're like two different things. Anyway, so like I said, my sister was 8 years older than me. So she moved out when she was 17, which is the legal age in Missouri. 18 is not legal in Missouri. 17 is legal in Missouri, unless it comes to cigarettes and sex. Otherwise, you're an adult at 17. So she moved out, got her own place. I was like 8 or 9, so it left me alone with my parents, and I don't blame her for moving out. That's not what I'm saying, but like I was alone with their arguments and the abuse and all that sort of stuff.
The squabbles.
Right. And then she ended up getting married and moving overseas and having her first kid overseas. She has 4 boys now, and one of them actually is a part of our house congregation, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
It's wonderful. And so is she.
Yes, so is she. Yeah. And that's part of the story I was going to say for later. But yes, so she is also, and her husband are also in our congregation. Okay, so when I turned 17, so I'm skipping forward a couple years. When I turned
From
17,
8 to 17?
no,
Or
from
14
14,
to 17.
15
Gotcha.
to 17. There wasn't like a lot, again, lots of fighting in the house. When I was 17, we started going to counseling when I was 15, like as a family. And then because my parents were fighting all the time and they knew I was being affected. So when I was 17, it just kind of, it turned on me and I would avoid being at home. So I would get up early, go to school early, get off of school my senior year, go volunteer at the local elementary school, and then go from there home. I'd watch like a TV show with my dad, and then I'd get dressed and go to work. And I would stay at work until like 1 in the morning, even though we closed at like 11. Like I would just stay there, make excuses or whatever.
Gotta clean the floor, Dad. Sorry.
Yeah. And then I would come home, and for a while, so when he quit being like verbally abusive with my mom, it turned on me. And so I would get screamed at until like 2, 3 in the morning most nights. And it just all hit ahead, and I ran away from home for about 2 weeks. I didn't go to school. I didn't contact my parents. I stole their car. I left it in a parking lot with its keys, and it was unlocked. And then I walked.
Great idea.
I walked to,
Wow.
that way they couldn't get me for Grand Theft Auto, even though they technically could, but they decided not to press charges.
Wow.
But they called the police, and the police couldn't find me, and they're like, look, she's 17. That's legal in Missouri. So if she shows back up, we'll deal with it then. But there's nothing really we can do since we found your car and have returned it to you.
And she's one of the part-time drivers on your vehicle and your insurance anyway,
Yeah.
Mr. Melvin.
Yeah.
Or Mr. Dad, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I ended up going home after a couple of weeks. I just needed like a breather, and of course my parents took me immediately to the counselors so the counselors could tell me what a bad person I was. But the counselors, they would always call me like a smart aleck and stuff, but at this point in time they're like, well, no wonder she ran away, because I explained to them like what was going on, and they kind of turned it back on my parents, and they were just like, it's y'all's fault. And they're like, you need to, stop doing that, and treat her more like an adult. If she wants to be an adult, you need to treat her like an adult. And so they did. They started treating me differently, and that was good. And then just right before graduation, I found out my sister was going through a divorce, which I'm sure will probably be part of her testimony. But I moved to where she lived at the time to help her with that, because she had small children. And that's how I got where I am now, where I live now. And so I helped her out. I started, though, while I had all this newfound freedom, I started drinking and smoking at 17.
From your mom and dad's
Yeah.
to your sisters. It's when you kind of
let loose. Yeah, because she was like, life's not that serious, like they're really strict and it's okay, so I let loose probably a little too much, against what I was raised with. I got a live-in boyfriend, and like I said, I was drinking and smoking and things of that nature, and my live-in boyfriend actually raped me, and it took a lot away from me. Of course, my sister asked me, like, would he rape you? Because she knew that I was trying to save myself. And I said no, because I didn't want to own up to that, I guess. Because it wasn't like how you depict it on TVs. Like TV shows, it's always like they get dang near killed when it happens.
Yeah.
You know, and
Attacked and drug
so
into the street
and it would have been
corners
hard to
and-
prove because he was my live-in boyfriend. You know,
Sure.
oh, you're just mad at him, so you're accusing him of this. So I let it go. I didn't file any charges or anything, and I didn't even kick him out right away because I was really confused. You know, and
You're
but
still a kid.
yeah. Well,
17 or not.
I had turned 18 at that point. But
Regardless.
yeah, it was actually like a week after my 18th birthday. And anyway, it just got where I couldn't like look myself in the mirror anymore. I couldn't stand to like hear his voice, and I ended up kicking him out and putting all his stuff in the yard and telling him to leave because he wasn't on our lease. Well, my lease. So anyway, so that was a really big thing, and that kind of played into my anxiety and depression that I was diagnosed with. So I was actually diagnosed with anxiety at 13. I started having like stomach issues at 8, probably because of the household I grew up in. And then I was diagnosed officially with depression when I was 18, after this incident happened. And so that's something that I still sometimes struggle with. But I try really hard to keep a level head. I've kind of learned what triggers me and just try to stay away from all of that. It took me a while. Anyway, so not quite a year after that, I moved back in with my parents. They had moved to a different state, so I moved back in with them so I could go to college. And so I started going to college, and I got involved like with the wrong crowd, and I started I was already drinking and smoking, but like I started really drinking really heavily. I maintained my grades somehow. I worked full time. I went to school full time. I had a social life where I mostly just drank. And I don't know how I maintained my grades, but I did. And, so nobody really knew there were underlying issues. I didn't drink. I didn't even let my parents know that I drank, even though I was living with them. Like they knew I'd come home late, but I was an adult, so they're just like, well, leave the door unlocked or use your key or whatever. So, I did get caught one night when my friends dropped me off because I couldn't drive. I hadn't had a chance to like sober up. So I did get caught one night.
Yeah, I remember this story.
Yeah. It's a funny story. Which we'll save maybe for another time. I don't need to
Sure.
tell it now, but it was a funny story with me and my dad when I came drunk into his house. Anyway, I also was encouraged growing up to like date a lot. So like I dated a lot. I dated a lot of different people at this point, and because of what happened, I felt like, well, I'm ruined now. So I actually started like sleeping around, which is not, like I said, a proud thing. I'm not ashamed of it anymore, but it's not like I'm sitting here boasting about it.
Well, sure, sure.
Anyway, when I had like one really, really bad night, it might actually have been the night that I came home to my parents drunk instead of just sneaking in the door. But I decided like I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I decided I'm not going to drink and smoke anymore. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to go back to church. I'm going to try to get right and get my life together, but I need something to occupy my time. Because if I don't have something to do, I'm going to go drink. Like I knew myself well enough, even at that young age, that if I didn't have something, I would go drink. So I was looking for a band to join. I was like, I want to sing in a band. I want to be cool. And so, because where I lived at the time, they had a really big band scene. So ironically, there was a church that was connected with a local Christian band. And so I messaged the band. I was like, okay, I'll just go to this church, but I'll message the band first. And the person that messaged me back about my inquiry for being the singer was the bassist. And that's actually who I ended up marrying for my first marriage. And
wasn't that ironic?
Isn't it? So he had a girlfriend at the time. But he was like trying to hang out with me, and I was like, you have a girlfriend, like this isn't gonna work. And they told me I couldn't be in the band because it would be a distraction having a girl in the band or whatever. But I was going to the church, and I went to church on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Well, real fast, between the heavy drinking, or no, hold on, let's go back one step. Between the living with your sister, helping her for a little while, and leaving your parents' house, was there any time during that process of the drinking, the smoking, the going out, the doing, was there any time in there that you felt like you just didn't believe in God in general, or you?
No, at that point, so when I was about 16 or 17, I started going to church on my own without my parents.
Right, right.
And I was, just because it's how I was raised, I was like, oh, I should probably do this, even if they're not going to do it. I was looking for something. But at that point, when I was, 18 and on my own and drinking and smoking and doing what I wanted to do, I believed in God, but that's about as far as it went. I was like, yeah, I believe in God, but I'm going to do what I want, basically.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think we've all been there.
Yeah. Good question, though.
Yeah.
You have any other questions?
No,
Okay.
you go back into
Okay.
the
Just wanna be sure.
bassist,
Yeah.
joining the
So-
band.
Yeah. So I wasn't allowed to join the band again because it would be a distraction. But I was going to the church, and one night this guy messages me, and it was like, I don't know, 9 at night, and he was like, "Hey, you want to go see a movie?" I was like, "It's really late," and he was like, "Oh, it's fine." I was like, "Well, you have a girlfriend." He's like, "Well, my cousin will be there. It's fine." So I was like, "Well, if your cousin's gonna be there, then I guess it's okay. We see each other at church anyway, where other people are gonna be. So if we're just going as like a group, fine." So I get there, and his cousin never showed up.
Well, that was smooth.
Yeah, and then he told me he'd broken up with his girlfriend and all this sort of stuff, and I was like, "Oh,
Sounds like
okay."
a trap, Jennifer.
It was, and it worked. And
Gotcha.
so we started seeing each other, and then we started seeing each other, and then my parents decided they were going to move a few months into us dating, and I hate this. I hate this so much about myself and also about the story, but I basically gave him an ultimatum, and I was just like, "Look, if you're not going to propose to me, then I'm going to move with my parents."
You're still living with your parents at this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Going to college and all that.
Yeah. I dropped out of college about a month before this. Like
Okay.
I'm out of college, but I'm still working full time and
Dropping out and joining a band.
No, I wasn't allowed to join the band.
Sure.
But I met a person in a band. Close enough. I'll just be
He plays an
I'll be the
instrument.
groupie. It's fine.
Oh, wow. Strong words from a strong woman.
Okay. You're being weird. But anyway, so he very quickly proposed. So my parents were supposed to leave within about 3 weeks.
So he took
He took his bait, and he was just like, "Okay, well, I don't want you to leave." And I was like, "Well, ring's the only way you're gonna get me to stay,
Fair enough.
So anyway, we moved in together before we got married, but we did get married really quickly. Not that that's an excuse. I'm just saying we got married really quickly after my parents had left. They came back for the wedding. But so he was, before we got married, he was I'm a church goer, I'm a straight up guy, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, like I don't do anything, I don't curse. And at the point where we had met, again, I'm just coming off of this, like, what I call like a wild life. I wasn't doing like drugs, but I was
Sure.
drinking and acting crazy and sleeping around, and like I said. And so it was hard to kind of mesh those together. So anyway, after we got married, he was just like super controlling, which made me get super angry a lot because I wasn't allowed to do things. And because again, with my parents, they knew I was strong-headed, and so they just kind of let me make up my own decisions because they knew I had a good head on my shoulders. I just had to make up my mind for myself. Anyway, so he was really, really abusive, and we tried for kids pretty early on, and I was told that.
Wait. Go back. You said he was super controlling, and then you skipped straight to he was abusive.
Right.
He was abusive in that first portion as well? Or did it build up to abuse?
It kind of built up over a couple of months. I mean, it wasn't very far in, which is why I say
wow.
it's like, it wasn't very
Within the
far
first
in.
year.
Yeah, and I should have noticed. I mean, now looking back with my, aged wisdom, that at 18, things that you can see as an adult an adultier adult, I should say, you don't necessarily catch when you're young.
Oh yeah.
But like there were like road rage incidents where he like tried to run a guy off the road and stuff like that, where he almost rammed it because some guy ran him off the road. He like almost rammed us into like one of the overpasses trying to pass this guy going like 100 miles an hour on the shoulder. And yeah, so probably not a very smart idea, but it was too late. We were married. And like in my family, the way that I was raised, once you're married, you stay with them until you die, and you are a heathen if anything else happens. Like you are
Yeah, I mean
bad.
that's
And again,
pretty biblical.
it is. It is. I'm not saying it isn't, but there's also, you have to take into consideration safety. Maybe you don't get a divorce, but you should still get away if your safety's in jeopardy.
Agreed.
But anyway, he was really, really abusive. We would get in screaming matches, and he would throw things. He shoved me against the walls. He almost broke my arm when he slammed, like I was reaching in for something while we were fighting, and I forget what it was, probably a bottle of water because we were fighting. My throat probably hurt, I don't know. But I was reaching in the fridge for something, and he like slammed my arm in the fridge door trying to break it, and he dragged me down the hall by my hair, and he chased me around our apartment one time. I locked myself in the bathroom. He tried to break the door down. And my mom and I, growing up, because she worked so much, it wasn't her fault, but because she worked so much, we did not have a good relationship, and I didn't really know her very well. But I remember calling her from the bathroom because I wanted to tell her that I loved her before he killed me. And there was another time that I was driving. We had gone to visit my parents, and we were driving back, and he jerked the wheel. We were fighting, and I told him to pull over because he's too angry to drive. And then I got on the driver's side, and while I'm driving, we're 60, 70 miles an hour on the highway, and he jerked the wheel, and we spun off and hit a fence, and then he chased me through an apartment complex, and I called the cops, and
My goodness.
ended up getting, and then he called me and told me it was my fault that he was upset and to come take care of him because he was so upset he was like throwing up and stuff. So as a good wife, I went and picked him up off the ground and cleaned up his puke and put him back in the car, and we drove the rest of the ride home in silence. And just like all of that, and people were like, well, why would you try to have a kid with that person, you know? Well, I'm married to him and I wanted kids, you know?
It's the right thing to do, biblically, right?
Yeah. So it was a little while in, and I discovered some messages on the computer. He was talking to another girl. And that's kind of where I put my foot down. I was like, look, you can hit me or whatever, but like you're talking to another female. I don't understand. And so we went to counseling for a while, which worked temporarily. Then my grandmother got cancer, and I went to another state to take care of her and left him in the state that we were living. And during that time, he lost his job. Not sure what happened there, why, but he lost his job. He never told me why. He said it was something to do with like his numbers or something.
Well, during the process of all this, was there any time that y'all weren't going to church still? Did y'all stop going to church? Did he, obviously he's different than what you had thought he was when you got married, because he was an outstanding guy, is what you
That's what
described.
I had thought, yeah.
But did y'all go to church this whole time while all this was going down?
A majority of the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, a majority of the time. The same church that, you know, we met in, got married in, we were still going there, and I confided in a couple of the girls there, and they prayed for me and stuff, but yeah, nothing really was done on their sides, because what can you do, you know? Aside from just, if they don't want help, or if they're not willing to take it to authorities or whatever, you know, what can you do? You can only pray for them, you know? And so I get it. I wasn't upset that they didn't do anything, but yeah, we were going to that church. Anyway, so he lost his job, and I was up taking care of my grandmother who had cancer.
Right.
And then when my aunt was able to come up to take care of her mother, I went back home, because I was only there temporarily, like a couple months, until she could get her like FMLA approved and stuff from her job. During this time, we went to a specialist to see why I hadn't gotten pregnant yet, and I was told there was like a 95% chance I could never have kids. And then we moved in with my sister because we couldn't afford the bills. I worked 2 jobs, but we still couldn't afford the bills because we lived in a big city and everything was super expensive. And
Fair
so
enough.
we ended up moving states to move in with my sister. And her family, she now had 4 children at this point, had been remarried, etc. Um, so we moved in with her and her family for about a year. And he worked with my brother-in-law, and I got a job at a retail store, and we saved money. And then we ended up moving states again back to what I call my home state, which is where I was mostly raised at. Despite the moving, we had one period of time where we stayed somewhere for a while.
Fair enough.
So we moved back there with all of my friends and some of my family. My aunt lived up there. And I got a job with my aunt, and he got a job somewhere else.
So you went one state, back to your sister's, back to your home state, and now you haven't had kids yet, or you have?
Still haven't had kids
Still
yet.
haven't had kids.
And it got so bad actually where they had, it was so sad. At my job, they brought in almost like, the vehicles where they have like dogs for show.
Sure.
And they're like, come adopt a puppy or whatever. So they basically did that with kids at my job because the orphanages were getting overrun. And so they brought in kids for like a show and tell. And it was
Wow.
so sad. I fell in love with this little boy. Loved soccer, blonde hair, blue eyes, so cute. I fell in love with him.
From Iceland or something.
I don't know. He was
Oh.
from that state.
Oh,
Stop being weird.
you said blonde-headed, blue-eyed. I don't know.
Anyway, we fell in love with him. I took adoption papers home, and I was like, we can't have a kid. We're adopting a kid. And like I said, we'd been through counseling at this point. The whole year we were at my sister's. Everything was kosher. We were good. So I thought we'd turned a leaf. He wasn't talking to anybody that I knew of, and all that sort of stuff. So we were just kind of moving on, and I was like, we're going to adopt a kid. Well, then I started getting sick and really emotional. And so he's like, take a pregnancy test. And I was like, I can't have kids. So I took one anyway, and it said I was pregnant. So I took like 7 more because I just wanted to be sure, because I was told we'd been trying for years at this point. And anyway, so we're pregnant with our first daughter. Everything was good. We bought our first house. Everything was fine. Had her. We were going to church. We found a church to go to. We were going Sundays, and then like Thursday night Bible studies, and some Wednesdays, whenever we could make it to those because of our jobs.
Getting involved.
Yeah. And it was really good. They were really nice, and we felt very welcomed. A little out of place, but very welcomed. Never understood why I felt out of place at churches until the last, decade or so. I'm almost done with my story, but then I'm trying to remember. Okay, so we had our first daughter, and then immediately got pregnant with the second daughter, and that was just so overwhelming to me. My daughter was 2 months old, I think, when I found out I was pregnant. Maybe 3 months old, maybe. And they were supposed to have the same birthday, but my second one came a month early, and I was already having like some signs of depression during the second pregnancy. I had quit my job to stay home, which is fantastic. I'm a stay-at-home mom right now. That really wasn't the depression thing. It was just like overwhelming. I was taking care of a friend's baby, my baby, all the household stuff.
And you're pregnant.
And I'm pregnant, and I didn't feel good. Well, I felt okay, actually. I don't want to say that's a lie, but, pregnancy is a lot, and especially when you're a new mom
It's up and down, I guess.
Yeah. But overall, physically, I felt fine. Like, I wasn't sick with her like I was the first one, so that was a blessing. But there was definitely something wrong up here, if that makes sense. So after I had my second baby, well, let me back up. While I was pregnant with my second one, I was 6 months pregnant, and my dad died. And that was really, really hard. Like I said, he and I, despite all of the abuse and all that sort of stuff, and the yelling and all the things, I just chalked it up to, it's just family. It's fine. It's, people have it a lot worse, and I had good parents that cared about me, And so, like, we used to have movie dates over the phone. Like, it was really weird, but he's disabled, so he stayed at home. So anytime I had a day off, I would call him, and we'd watch a movie over the phone together, and I would call him at least twice or three times a week, and we were just really close. And so it hurt a lot when he died. And then my husband at the time, um, he didn't grow up like that. Like, he wasn't close with his dad, especially. And so he took it really hard. Like, I feel like he took it harder than I did. And he quit going to work, and he wouldn't help around the house. Like, he just like laid on the couch.
He just quit. Quit his job.
He basically, well, he got approved somehow for FMLA, even though he hadn't been there for a year, but it didn't pay anything. It was just like, you won't lose your job over it, basically. So he just like laid on the couch and like didn't help me with either of the babies. And I was going through like a big emotional roller coaster, and I got postpartum super bad, like super bad. Like, I'm talking want to throw your baby against the wall craziness because they won't stop crying, even though that's what babies do. Like, it was really bad. I had to go on medication. I had to have like 24-hour support. So like, my best friend knew that he was a piece of crap, so she basically stayed with me almost 24 hours a day, even though she was pregnant herself and had a job. But anytime she had free time,
Let's backtrack just a second.
she stayed with me.
You were pregnant, you had the infant, you were helping raise another kid or help with another
Babysitting, another baby
while pregnant, and then dad died.
And then I had the
then
second
you had
one.
the baby.
And I quit watching the other lady's baby because now I had two babies.
You quit watching the baby, but during that time, how long before the second baby came when your dad died? Like, after your dad died?
My dad died, and she came a month early, so it was a month and a half or 2 months after he died.
And this whole time, your husband was off on FMLA?
No, he was, yes, yeah.
Since the dad died?
Well, it was
Since
a couple
your
of
dad
weeks after my dad died, yeah.
So he went on a hiatus from his job.
And life, pretty much. He played video games and watched TV, and he found a band to join and went to band practice. And that's what he did. And we had several discussions about it, and then he went back to work eventually, because I was like, our baby cannot, at this point, our oldest was, a year old roughly. She's eating solid foods. And I was like, she can't just have peanut butter every day. She needs like fruits and vegetables and meat and bread, and she needs milk, and all that's very expensive when we have no money. And I offered several times to go get a job. I was like, we can put them in daycare, and you can stay at home and deal with your mental stuff, and I can go to work. And he was like, no, that's not right. I was like, okay, well, I need you to do something. So he went back to work, but then he developed a relationship with one of his coworkers.
Oh, there it is.
To the point where I asked him, do you have feelings for her? And he was like, well, I like her. And I said, okay, if we were not married, would you be dating her right now? And he said, probably. And I said, okay. And then I decided I couldn't stay anymore, and he had also started getting abusive again. Like, anytime he'd get frustrated, he'd start throwing stuff. He wasn't like hitting at that point yet, but I didn't want my kids around that.
Sure.
And I just felt like we were completely a burden to him and useless to him, and we weren't loved and all this sort of stuff. So I called my sister. And I was like, hey, so I need a place to stay again for the third time in my life, So she took us in. Her husband and her neighbor actually came up and helped me move my stuff out.
Another state away.
Yep, back to the state.
Another state, yeah.
And well, I had left him. And I told him I was leaving. I packed the van up, and he came out and asked me not to leave. I went to my sister's anyway, and I was like, sorry. I was like, I can't do this with you anymore right now. Like, maybe in a little bit. I need you to get your priorities straight and think about what you want. And then I had my sister, I'm sorry, not my sister, my brother-in-law and the neighbor come help move the stuff. And it was probably a month and a half after that, he came down to visit for his birthday. And I asked him point blank, I said, do you love us? And he was really hesitant. And he's like, I mean, yeah. And I was like, do you miss us? He's like, I don't know. And I said, do you want us to come home? He said, I don't know. And so I said, well, if you don't know, then that means no, and you're just trying to be nice, And so I went ahead and I filed for divorce the first time, because it was a long, drawn-out process. And so I stayed with my sister. After a little while, I was depressed myself, so I didn't get a job right away, and they had to basically kick the little birdie out of the nest, if that makes sense. And they're like, you
Sure.
need to get a job. You need to put the kids in daycare and go get a job. You need to straighten your life up, get your life together. You're a mom, So it hurt at the time, but it was a good kick in the pants that I needed. So I went and got a job, but it didn't pay enough for how far away I was working. So then I quit that job and got a different job, but that didn't pay very much either. Um, and he wasn't sending anything to help with the kids.
Right.
And I had told him that he didn't need to pay child support if he just continued to make the house payments until we could arrange to sell the house or whatever. In the midst of all this, he would not do, in our state, it's required to do a parenting class if you get a divorce.
Right.
And he would not come up to do the parenting class. He would not do anything that was required. So like the date on the divorce papers expired. So I'm stuck with, I can't get any assistance at this point for anything. No food stamps or anything like that. And not that I technically needed them because I was with my sister, but I didn't make enough money to afford rent or anything like that on my own at that point.
Help with groceries.
Because I haven't had a
and all
job
that.
in like 3 or 4 years at this point,
Right, right.
And so I guess it was probably 2 years. But either way, it's been a while since I had a job, and I'm kind of starting over and trying to make my way in this new area that I don't know anyone or have any connections or anything like that. And so my sister gives me like I start dating. Just throw that in there. I start dating because I'm like, well, he's not going to hold me back from living my life any more than he already has. And even though he won't sign the divorce papers, I consider us divorced. So I started dating. And my sister didn't agree with that, rightfully so. So she gave me like a date to move out by. So I saved up money, but my apartment wasn't ready. And my brother-in-law got really upset and was like, you need to get out of the house. We're going to pack up your stuff. And I was like, well, I have to go to work or I'm not going to have a job and I won't be able to get out of your house. And he's like, okay, well, I'm just telling you, we're moving your stuff out today. And I was like, well, my apartment's not ready yet. When my apartment's ready, we can move my stuff. And I go to work thinking it's not a big deal. I realize he's upset. But I come home, all of my stuff's in the yard. So they followed through with what they were saying. Tough love, I think, is what they think they were giving at the time. But they wanted to keep my kids, and I was like, you're not keeping my kids. And we got into a squabble. And one thing leads to another. I had a really hot head. I still do, but I'm more logical now than I was then.
You get a warm head.
Yeah. But I ended up going to jail for attempted manslaughter with like a motor vehicle or something like that because they accused me of trying to run my brother-in-law over. And they had, my sister's neighbors were outside, and that wasn't what I was trying to do, but I can see how other people would see that now. But I was just so offended that they would think I would try to run him over. But at the time, anyway, so I go to jail. And my sister gets my kids. She gets a restraining order against me for her husband, her children, and my children. So I can't see my children at this point. My mom comes to visit me at the jail, not to help me, but to tell me what a terrible person I am. About how they bent over backwards to help me, and then I try to kill him, what a terrible person I am, etc. And I was like, well, you didn't even hear my side of what was going on. You don't know what I was trying to do or not do. And anyway, she just kind of left me with that. She's like, you're just going to have to sit in jail and rot, I guess, basically is what she said. So I called my best friend in another state, and she contacted one of my coworker type people, and they got my money out of my car for me or off of wherever I was staying at, and they brought the money to the jail to pay a bondman to get me out of jail, and then I was on probation for a year. Following that, fast forwarding about 3 months into the probationary period, I got my kids back, and I refused to let my sister have, I was like, you screwed me over, and I hate you, and you're never going to see my kids, you're never going to see me, don't talk to me, whatever. But unfortunately, I lived like a mile away from her. Yeah.
That didn't work out.
Because that was the only apartment I could find.
Sure.
Was at the time was that one. But still, even though we lived so close, I didn't see her. I made sure not to see her. I went to the store at like odd hours that I knew she wouldn't be there and all that sort of stuff.
Avoid.
Yeah. But I worked and like I started dating, like I said, dating around, and I worked 2 and 3 jobs, which was really tiring. I was rarely home. My kids seemed like they were always at daycare or babysitter. I rarely saw them, but it was just to be able to afford an apartment to keep my kids a roof over their heads so they wouldn't get taken from me by the state. I'm still not getting any kind of child support or anything. He still hasn't really contacted, hasn't asked to talk to his kids.
He's just been a ghost for the past
year.
Yeah.
Roughly, yeah. And so I got kicked out of that apartment because it was, in their eyes, it was unsanitary because I had like trash bags piled in the kitchen because I couldn't take them downstairs. I guess I could have, but I don't know when I was supposed to do that between working 3 jobs and taking care of a toddler and a little baby, but neither here nor there. During this time, before I got kicked out, actually, right before I got kicked out, my younger daughter had emergency surgery and almost died. She had what's called a triple intussusception, which is basically where the intestines fold in on themselves, but it did it 3 times. So I was in the hospital with her. I didn't work for like 3 weeks while I was in the hospital with her. Her biological father did come up, but it was after I called and cussed him out, and then called his mom, and then she called and cussed him out, and then paid for him to come up because he was just making excuses like, well, you know, I'm still trying to get a job, and
Dude, it's been a year and a half. What's going on?
And I don't have money for that. And I was like, your kid is dying. You need to see her if you care about her at all. And he was like, well, I'll see what I can do. So anyway, he ended up coming up just to be at the hospital. It was really awkward because we hadn't seen each other in like a year. And I had a boyfriend during this time, so he was at the hospital also, which was also very awkward.
Awkward.
Yeah. And then my other baby, the older one, had been staying with my boyfriend's parents during this time. So it was just a really, really trying time, and I felt alone and abandoned. And I know a lot of my family was accusing me of, I was basically ostracized. A lot of my family either quit speaking to me during this time, accused me of being a drug addict, accused me of being like a whatever. And I wasn't even drinking or smoking at this time yet. Or at least very rarely, because I was so busy. Like I can't be at work drunk, you know, like I'm not a functioning alcoholic, you know, and I don't function. So it was really upsetting. I had put out, before GoFundMe's were a thing, I had put out like as a last resort. It was very embarrassing for me, but out of desperation, so I didn't get kicked out of my apartment for failure to pay bills, I put out a thing on Facebook. I was like, I need help. I need money. I just need like $100 to pay my rent. Like, I'm short. And one of my dad's cousins actually commented and was like, why are you asking for money so you can spend it on all those drugs you've been doing and yada, yada, yada. And
that
it was
escalated
really,
quickly.
yeah, it was really embarrassing and really sad. And I felt very alone. I didn't really have any friends because, again, I'm a single mom who had just moved. You know, and yes, I'm dating people, but it's because of like dating websites. It's not because I'm meeting people out in the real world, you know.
Well, and just to clarify, you definitely were not walking in the way that you should have been during this time period. Pretty much since you were a kid, right?
Yeah, I hadn't been walking real well. I mean, like I was trying when I was married and had the babies and we were going to church, and I was trying to do the right thing. I even like got baptized in front of the congregation, and like I was trying to do the right thing. But when my life started unraveling, like after I went to jail, I was just like, I'm done. I just don't care anymore. I was angry and bitter and upset, and like I said, I felt really alone and abandoned, and like people were kicking me while I was down that didn't even know what was going on.
Didn't even ask.
Yeah, didn't even, hey, I heard this was going on. What happened? Do you need help? Are you okay? Like, nobody even asked if I was okay. You know, like, you can not like something somebody did and still ask them if they're okay. Like, do you need help? Do you need mental help? You know, like something, you know.
Get close to the bacon. You need mental help.
Like, nobody.
Call 1-800.
So I just felt like nobody really cared. Except for, like I said, my boyfriend that I was dating, and I ended up breaking it off with him because he had all these big dreams, and I was like, I'm just bringing you down. Like, I am a single mom with 2 kids, and you have all these aspirations for your life. Like, you don't need me, you know? Um, so then I was handling things by myself. I ended up getting kicked out of the apartment. Like I said, they said it was unsanitary, and it probably was. I don't remember it being unsanitary, but I don't have a lot of memory from being in the apartment because I was always working. So, um, maybe it was. I don't remember.
Come home, sleep for a minute, and get back out.
Pretty
Go
much.
again.
Yeah. Fix my kids a hot meal before I take them to the babysitter. You know, leave dishes in the sink, leave some trash piled up in the corner, you know. But so I was forced to move to a really, really, really bad neighborhood because, again, it's the only thing I could afford, along with daycare and all the stuff that I'm handling on my own. And because of my record now that I have, I can't get a good job. So, like, I have to do, and I'm not saying anything. I loved serving tables. I really did. I loved waiting on tables. It's not a bad profession, but it was pretty much one of the only ones I was qualified for, instead of using my education that I had and my previous work experiences, things like that. At this point in time, it's one of the only things that's available to me. So I started waiting tables, and again, hang out with the wrong people. I went, like I said, to this really, really bad neighborhood in a really, really run down, bug infested trailer. It was bad. It was really bad. And so to help me, my little cousin moved in, and we had some really good times, and we had some really, really bad times. And a majority of the time, she spent, like I said, I was in with bad crowd too, but she was in with like a really bad crowd. She started dating like the drug lord of our neighborhood, and so he would bring his little minions to my house, and I can't say no because they have guns and knives, and they're not good people. I didn't want them around my kids. I didn't want them in my house, but it is what it is. And at one point, 3 of his minions took me in a room and threatened to rape me. So it was really terrifying. But again, I couldn't afford all of the bills. She helped for a little while, but then it became more. I felt used toward the end of it. I was paying her kids' daycare bills, a lot of them, and while she was out with her drug lord boyfriend guy. And anyway, so I ended up not being able to pay bills. I called my ex, and I was like, hey, so I know we're like legally married still. Like, do you want to get back together? You know, like, because he was abusive, but at least there was some sort of stability there.
Sure.
And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, okay, well, these are still your kids. We're still legally married. And either you need to help me pay for bills, like to keep the electricity on, or daycare, preferably daycare, but, you know, electricity, something. I need your help. This is the one and only time he ever sent me money. So he sent me enough to keep my electric bill on that month. But then the next month, I was short again because I was paying 3 kids' daycare bills, and the house bill, and my cell phone bill, and gas, and food, and groceries, and, you know, diapers. Both of my kids are still in diapers at this point. And so it was just a really, 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 really rough time. And I ended up not being able to pay my water bill, and the people said, if you can't pay one of your bills, whether it's electric or water, we're locking you out of the house. Like, that's just the deal when you sign the contract. So
That's fair.
they gave me an eviction notice. Said I had like 3 or 5 days to be out. So once again,
Should be 7, but
well, whatever
Yeah.
it was, it
You
wasn't
had a
very
week.
long. And I was like, so I called them, and I was like, even if I pay my water bill and get it caught up, like if I pay it this week, and they're like, no, you have to be out. Like, the rules are the rules, and it doesn't matter if you get caught up. So I was like, okay, well, screw it. I'm not going to pay it then, you know, and may as well as not. And once again, I called my sister, even though I was mad at her, hadn't spoken to her in a year at this point, a little over a year maybe. And I was like, I know we haven't spoken, but I also know you care about my kids. Even if you don't care about me, I know you care about my kids. And I need them to stay with you for a couple of weeks until um, until I can secure another place, because I'm getting kicked out of this one also. And so she sent her husband and her oldest son to come and get the girls and their things. And my cousin was somewhere, I don't know, hanging out with friends or something before this. But she came home like right in time while they were packing stuff up. And I will say she was very much an emotional support system, even if she wasn't a financial support system. So after my kids drove away, I told her, I was like, they're not going to give me my kids back. They're not going to give me a chance to get on my feet. And I just collapsed in the driveway, like just bawling. Like I already knew. And she's like, they're going to give them back. And I was like, you don't know my family. Like I know my family. I know your family, but you don't know my family, you know? And sure enough, my sister, we had like another get together where we could tell her like drug lord boyfriend that like I had to move and whatever. And so we were drinking and I was just like, screw it. So I was just getting very, very drunk and
Making bad decisions.
yeah, I was just like, screw it. And one of them put something in my drink, and so it's like, I don't want to say 2 weeks later, because they only gave me like 7 days, so it was a couple days later, because it was before I got kicked out completely. But one of them put something in my drink, and I noticed it like right away. Like I took a drink of it, and I felt kind of dizzy, and I was like, so I put my drink down. You know, it's like, there's something in there. I don't know if it was like a roofie or a Xanax, like I have no idea, but something was in there that made me feel different than just drinking. So I put my drink down, and it was like the next day, I don't know if my sister was spying on me, I don't know, but the next day she called me to her house, and she was like, so it may have even been on Thanksgiving time. I remember Thanksgiving being in there somewhere, I don't know, but she was like, okay, so here's the deal. I filed custody for your kids, and you can either come to court, take a drug test, and fight me on it, or you can just sign the papers here at my house. And I was like, well, obviously I'm getting kicked out of my house, and I have no money for bills, so obviously I can't afford a lawyer. And she's like, okay, well, would you be willing to take a drug test? And I was like, I literally just had a drink spiked last night. I don't know if you care, but I wouldn't pass a drug test. And she didn't believe me, and I don't blame her for not believing me, but that's what happened. And so I signed the custody papers because I was between a rock and a hard place. So she got custody.
You were at the bottom, like
yeah.
you had hit rock bottom.
Oh, not yet.
Sure. Well, later on too, but I'm saying,
yeah.
As far as with the kids.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You were like, I can't do this. This
yeah,
is not
I was like, I have no way to fight you on this. So I had to sign the custody papers. And honestly, it was what was best for them at the time, just because she did have a house. She did have a stable income. She had a job. Her husband had a job. You know, hindsight, it probably was the best place at that point in time for them to be.
Sure.
But so then I was homeless for a while. I lived in my van. I went out to the big city, and which was probably about 40 minutes from her house, and got a job out there, living in my van. And then I started dating one of my coworkers, and they offered me a place to stay. And so I stayed with them for a little bit. And then so when I was on probation, I also had to do community service for a ticket I got for insurance, like not having insurance on my car. So a person I had met during that time was one of my friends, and so his friend I had met through him. I know it's very confusing, but I stayed at a house out there that the guy was renting a room out of. So then I suddenly had like 5 roommates in a big house, and that was odd to get used to, but they ended up being some of my really, really very good friends. Like I said, emotional support systems. I told them everything that was going on in my life after I got to know them and opened up to them and stuff, and we just were so close. Like one of my buddies I have told you about was like a big brother to me, and just kind of took me under his wing, took care of me. You know, like it actually was a good experience, although we all drank a lot at that house. It was like a party house kind
Party
of.
time.
It was like, okay, I've lost my kids. Nothing else that I want to do. So I'm just going to get ever so drunk right now and forget everything and have fun, is basically what I did for like a year. I was so depressed, year and a half. And then my sister served me.
Depressed while drinking more depression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It was just like a pastime in between hours I needed to be at work. And the one time a week, at first it was you can come see your kids anytime you want, the door's always open. But then when I fixed my schedule where I could see them more, it was shut off to I could only see them one time a week for like 2 hours.
And the kids are how old at this point?
Like 2 and 3,
Okay.
maybe 3 and 4. I think 2 and, well, it lasted until they were, so it was like 2, yeah, like 2 and 3, when my sister got them, and then it lasted until they were 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So it was like 3 years that she had them. And so the first year and a half, I just spent basically drunk whenever I wasn't at work and whenever it wasn't visitation, basically. And that was at house, like at my home.
Sure.
And then I started branching out and going out with coworkers occasionally to like a bar once in a while, stuff like that. And it was on one of my birthdays, one of the people I was dating like gave me pot. So for my birthday, that's the type of people I hung out with. Like they're like, "Oh, it's your birthday, have some illegal drugs." So I did smoke pot briefly. It was 2 months almost to the day. And I was like, I don't like this anymore. I'm just going to stick with drinking. But I did smoke pot briefly, illegally, and medicinally, there's nothing wrong with pot, in my opinion. Like, if you're using it to calm anxiety, but if you're using it as a crutch like I was to just, like, get out of your feelings and stuff, I think there is an issue with anything that you use that, whether it's drinking or food or video games or whatever. If you're using it to escape something, it's probably not good for you. But anyway.
Fair enough.
So it's
So let's
like
push
a year and a
forward.
half in, my sister sends me adoption papers at work, and I have like a nervous breakdown at work. Like, because I was just like, oh, it's not enough that she has custody of my kids, now she just wants to take them completely from me, and freaking
She's trying
out.
to make it official.
Yeah. And we
Your
had been
kids are now my kids.
we had been arguing for a few months about different things. I'm like, you can't do that because they're my kids. And she was like, well, I'm the one that's raising them and feeding them and clothing them and taking care of them. I can do whatever I want. I have custody. It was those sort of arguments that we were having. Anyway, so I got the adoption papers, and I somehow convinced a lawyer to take my case. And I was making payments to him weekly. I was making weekly payments because I was a server. So I was like, I can't give you monthly payments, but I can give you weekly payments in X amount of dollars, like whatever I have,
Sure.
And he accepted it, and he took my case, and we went to court, and we won that court case. Like, she still had custody, but she wasn't allowed to adopt them. So that was
Problem avoided.
Yeah, and so I kind of breathed for a minute, but the judge did say, because she was trying to do that I needed to try for custody as soon as possible, to get them back, because the next time it goes to court, it may not be
So cut and dry.
right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So I started, at this point in time, I was engaged, and the guy I was engaged to was an alcoholic. And so that was really trying, because like I was drinking, he was drinking, but then I decided to stop drinking, and so that was really a big thing. And we ended up breaking it off for multiple reasons, but that was one of them.
Sure.
Because I was like trying to go to AA and get myself straight so I could try to get my kids back, and trying to save money for another lawyer or the same lawyer, whatever, to carry over the case for getting custody back. So then I moved back into the original house, where I had the 5 roommates.
Right.
But they weren't there anymore. They had like moved out and moved on with their lives or whatever, just as I had moved out and gotten engaged.
You went in as a renter.
Yeah.
On your own.
So I was legitimately renting the property by myself because I was trying to show a house.
Stability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me back up. So before that, after the alcoholic guy, I tried to make a move with my kids and it didn't work out and it made me depressed again. So I started drinking again. I quit going to AA and I started drinking again. And I started going like to the clubs and all that sort of stuff. And I started, well, before that, I was dancing for money also. And so I had like a lot of different things going on where I was just trying to get money to come in.
Sure.
And I'm not proud of that. Like I said, it was embarrassing. I hated myself. I didn't I didn't like looking in the mirror. I didn't like, men's hands being on me and stuff. It was very um, it was just bad. I don't know. I don't want to say disgraceful, but it made you defiling. Like you just felt icky, and it didn't
Sure.
matter how many showers you took, you just felt icky.
Yeah. You weren't dancing completely nude.
No, I wasn't a stripper.
Right.
But
Okay,
I
so
did.
let's clarify that.
Well, but it was very close.
Close.
It was very close. Like as close to that as you can get without actually being nude.
Sure.
You know.
But after that.
But anyway, so I stopped doing those things, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a real job, and I'm gonna, even if it pays pennies, I'm gonna get a real job. So then the clubs I was frequenting, I started working at night, and I had a legit job during the day, that would look good, in
Double
court.
dipping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was working at like a vet clinic during the day, and then at night I was working at the clubs that I had been a patron of. And there was just one night, the boyfriend I had at the time also like broke up with me. We got in a really bad fight, and that boyfriend, I was closer with him than I was my fiance, if that makes sense. And we were supposed to go in on the house together. And it was like right before I got the house that your phone's always interrupting things. But anyway, but we were supposed to go in together on the house, on the rental house. And we got in a really bad fight about 3 weeks. Like the plan, like he helped me make a plan, and he was like, okay, we're going to get your kids back. We're going to save money. We're going to move into this house together. We're going to hire a lawyer. I'm going to be there in your corner. We're going to get your kids back.
So during this
and
time.
we were going to
I
counseling.
during this time, was there any time while you're doing these things, we'll just say, is there any time that you were going to church thinking about
Absolutely not. Well, that's not true. So absolutely not on my part. But that guy that was like, we're going to do all these things together, he's like, let's go to church with my grandparents. And so we started going to church on Sundays. Well, we were together for like almost a year. And so we started going to church like 9 months. So like that latter part, right before I got the kids back, we were together. And during that time, and my sister like adored him. And she was just like, this is a good guy, let this one work out, And so she started letting me see my kids more because of the guy.
Good.
And
Okay.
so she let me take them to church on Sundays and spend Sunday afternoons with them, as well as my weekly visitation time. So she was kind of relenting a little bit at this point in time because of that guy's presence.
Fair enough.
Anyway, we got in a really, really bad fight about 3 weeks before we were supposed to sign the lease to the house. And he ended up breaking up with me, and I don't blame him. I acted crazy. It's no excuse for my behavior, but I was super stressed out and super sad and all the things. And like, I still can only see my kids on these days. I still can only do this if I ask permission to do this with my own children. Like it was a bad time for me. And anyway, so he had broken up with me, and I went ahead and moved on with the house. And because I was like, well, whether he's with me or not. So I'm like going through like terrible heartache as well as stress. And there was a point in time, like I asked my sister, I was like, can I please have the kids on XYZ day? And she was like, no. I was like, can I have them on this day? No. Can I come see them here? You can come on your normal time, and
Excuse me.
and I don't recommend to do this, but I had like a breakdown in the living room of the rental house, and I was just sobbing. I was like literally prostrate on the floor, just laying on the floor, like basically drowning in my own tears because my face was on the floor, and just there's a pool of water. I cried until I couldn't cry anymore, and I'm screaming, I'm venting, and I'm yelling, and I'm just angry, and I'm sad. And I told Yahuah, whom I knew back then as just God, but I told him, I said, I know that we're supposed to have been put here for a purpose, but I feel like there is no purpose for my life. You took my kids from me. You had let all these bad things happen to me, and I said, if you have anything left for me to do on this earth, if there is any plan that you have for me, I'm giving you 7 days. I'm not threatening you. I'm not trying to make a bargain with you. I'm letting you know that this is my plan as a human being. This is where I'm at. You have 7 days, and I will be gone off of this earth, if you catch my drift, on the 7th day if you do not give me my kids back. I can't do this anymore. And like I can't fight this battle on my own anymore. I can't do it. Everything's falling apart. Everything I touch was falling apart. And so I was just like, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. I can't keep doing this. So there was a situation that happened, and it allowed me a window, and I took the opportunity. I took advantage of the situation, but I took the opportunity to file for my children back. I had proof. I didn't even have a lawyer, but I had proof of the things that I was saying. It wasn't just me being slanderous or whatever. And
Wasn't
I had,
hearsay.
yeah, and I had a really good friend at the time, and she helped me print off photos. She helped me type things up. She helped me organize. We based our language off of, we went and got to my previous lawyer for the adoption case. We went and got all the paperwork, and tried to write it as legalistically as we could, like my petition or whatever. So she was a really, really great help to me, both in that time, and later on. But so I filed for my kids back, and they gave me a court date on the 5th day. So I told Yahuah, God, I needed my kids back within 7 days. They filed my court date on the 5th day of that 7 day. I thought it was going to be after, but it was the 5th day, and that day I was given custody of my kids back. So I told him, like, I would devote myself to him, because he gave me my kids back. And sorry, I just didn't think that would happen. And,
Hallelujah.
yeah, and it was so amazing. And people say that they have these aha moments, or they have something major happen in their lives, and I didn't think that would happen for me. But he showed out in a big way, because I gave him 7 days. Like, I had planned to not be on this earth anymore. And on the 5th day, like, I just remember the judge saying to take them home. I could go. I was like, when can I get them? He's like, right now. I said, I can take them out of school. And he's like, yeah, take this court order with me. Or
Go
with
get your
you.
kids.
Go get your kids. So my ex that was supposed to rent the house with me, he was at court. My ex-husband was at court. My best friend and her husband had helped me put the papers together, were at court, and they were the only ones on my side in that courtroom. My entire family showed up, and they were all on my sister's side. And my mother had taken the stand against me during the adoption case, and during this thing, she was like, I'm neutral in this. And so that was a really big hit also, since we already didn't have a very good relationship.
Sure.
And so I went and got my kids, and I took them home, and it was really rough. I had to buy them all new things.
Sure.
Get them enrolled in daycares, and they had a bunch of behavioral issues because of everything they had been through. And so they kept getting kicked out of daycares. All of my savings went bye-bye in the first 2 months.
But you had the established place to live.
I did, yeah.
You got the kids back.
Yep.
You
I started,
laid down in full reverence.
Yep.
At that point.
Yep, and I took them to church. I was like, okay, I told you I was going to devote myself, so we're going to go to church. So we started going to a local church, and things actually started going right. Like when I just laid down, I started reading my Bible. I quit working at the club. Um, I had quit drinking and stuff, and I quit sleeping around, and just everything was just kind of falling into place when I turned my life over to him.
Yeah.
And that's when I met you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Shortly after
we
that.
started, it was almost a month, it was right at about a month after I got my kids back and had been going to church and stuff, we started talking.
Yep. Yep.
And then we got together about a month and a half after that. And then we moved in together.
Yep.
Because we still weren't walking the correct path, but we at least, were going to church and we were reading our Bibles and trying to do what we felt was right in our worldly situation.
Sure. Sure.
Like
we were way off.
we were lost still,
We were
but we were
lost.
trying.
Yeah.
You had been through your own things, as you'll go into your testimony about. I know
Sure,
mine's
sure.
been kind of long-winded and yours probably be a little bit shorter, but
Absolutely. Yes.
but anyway, so we got together and we got married and had Cedar, and we were still going to church, and then we were just kind of talking, and we saw some of those videos, like I said in a previous video that we saw about like the Revelation 12 sign, and
Sure.
we were curious, and I started praying for him to open our eyes, and then he started revealing all this crazy stuff to me that, like I said in the last video, the church video, that we didn't even understand what we were understanding at
Yeah,
that point. We
we're
were like,
still
okay,
lost.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so we started really kind of digging deep at that point, and he's done nothing but like bless us since
Yes.
then. And it's just such, from all of the stuff, and I know it's been a long video, I was supposed to make it much shorter than this,
It's okay.
but all of these things, everything that we go through is for a reason. It really is. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can't see the reason. To backtrack just for a second, when we got together, Brett also encouraged me to forgive my mom and my sister.
Yeah.
I found out during that time when I was trying to have the forgiveness talk with my mom that my mom was a big instigator into why my family wasn't speaking to me. She had been telling them that I was prostituting and doing drugs and things of that nature. So
Sure.
she was saying things, and I was like, if you thought that I was doing that, why didn't you at least ask me? Like, I may have lied to you, but you could have at least asked instead of just spreading stuff
Sure.
around, And but through Yahuah coming through for me with my kids, and then me devoting myself and telling him he will be my God. It's just what it says in the scriptures. If you're for him, then he'll bless you. Who can be against you?
Yeah.
And if you are not for him, then you'll get the consequence. You'll get curses.
That's right.
And I'm literally a living proof of that. And we've done nothing but be blessed, and
We have.
to the point where my ex-husband gave up his rights to the kids, and Brad adopted them, my kids. We have a beautiful child together. He has an amazing older son, my stepson.
Yep. Yep.
I love him too, and we're so proud of all the moves he's making in life right now as an adult, and
Yeah, we are.
just so many amazing things. So Brad actually is the one that encouraged me to forgive my family, and it took me a little longer with my sister. I forgave my mom, and then I eventually started talking to my sister because of some other things that were going on. Again, that'll probably be part of her testimony, but we started talking and we developed a relationship, and there's just so much love and so much forgiveness, and I never thought that I would have that with my family again. And
Yeah,
even
yeah.
some of my extended family has been speaking to me, and not just has been speaking to me, but like we actually have relationships again now, and
Sure.
just there's so much healing and so much grace and so much love, and sorry,
Are you okay? Some tissue right there.
yeah, it's a lot, whether you're being, we never really know exactly why things happen. Like now I can look back and know, okay, my dad passed away and that sucked, and he was like one of my very best friends, but if he was still alive today, I wouldn't really have a relationship with my mom. I wouldn't have really bothered because we didn't really know each other while I was growing up. Again, that wasn't her fault. She had to work because my dad was disabled. I don't fault her in any way for that.
Oh yeah,
It's just a reality.
She
you
says
know.
that she was the breadwinner.
She was.
She had to
She
be
had to
forced
be.
breadwinner.
Well, she had to be. She had 2 kids.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just her and my dad. She had 2 kids that were depending on her.
Sure.
And, you know, just all these different things. You know, even with my ex-husband, there's a reason. Obviously, since I married Brad, he finally did sign the divorce papers on the 3rd time that I filed them. But he, like I said, he's kind of backed out of the picture now, which it's sad, but it's been a blessing to the girls because they know Brad's been there for them since they were 5 and 6 years old.
Yep, a long time ago.
And yeah, and so I'm just so thankful that I have a support system that believes in Yahuah, that encourages me, that leads me, that lets me cry and tells me it's okay, you're okay. You know, just saying you're okay. You know, that's something that I didn't have before.
Sure.
And I'm just so thankful for where my life is.
Yeah. Our lives turned around, both of us, after that. After we got together, it was and then the blessing of all the wonderful things that were given to us as far as information.
Sure, yeah.
You know, we had to look for it.
Yeah.
But the difference
You
was
seek me, you'll find me.
the difference was we were seeking him instead of
being complacent or turning away,
or just completely turning away,
being angry and
and once we started seeking, now there's so much that he's
overwhelming us.
He's overwhelmed us at times where we just and Jennifer may want to get into that briefly, but there's been times that we've been so overwhelmed that it's just like I just don't want to look any further at this point.
I had to take a break for a couple of months.
I need to
process.
I need to chew on what I'm biting here.
Yeah.
Just to get it all wrapped up, because we, you know, at the end of the day, Jennifer's story and my story are similar in a way that we were both knew who God, we'll use the word there, the capital G God. We both knew
who the Father
he
was. Yeah.
But we weren't ever at a point where we were seeking him, and we were, I hate to say it, but making poor choices, and that'll be both of our stories, poor choices that cause destruction all the way to a breaking point, which I think is a beautiful story. And I've heard it before, obviously, but the reality is you were at the bottom. You had to be broke all the way down to this point, and he slowly, have the past 10 years, has just lifted you out of this hole, and he's brought us both so much happiness at times, and there's been hard times too. We're married, there's things, we got kids, but we've it's been a beautiful thing to hear this story and see the outcome.
And when he started like opening our eyes and stuff, I went immediately to my mom and my sister.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to go to the churches. You said we weren't ready, as we discussed in the church video.
Sure.
But I immediately went to my mom and my sister, and I stayed up with them until Mom actually had to go to bed because she was so tired. But I stayed up with my sister until 2 or 3 in the morning, talking to her about it when she was visiting my mom. And like you said, we've had our ups and downs in the marriage, and
sure.
But I think we've had more ups than downs.
Oh yeah.
And
no doubt.
Knowing that it's not going anywhere, and that I don't have to worry if you're gonna, you know, hit me, or you know what I'm saying, like it's completely different. Knowing that there's a support partner, like when we had our son. I say my son, but it's our son. But when we had our son, it was a completely different experience than it was with my other kids. You know, I was fully prepped. I was like, get out of here, I got this, because I was used to being the one that took care of the kids. But you know, you have a really soft spot for kids, and you love kids. And
what kind of dad don't like their kids? Like,
that's what I'm saying. So
that's
that
odd.
that was a change. You forgiving my past, you know, when I opened up to you about it, and just being like, hey man, that's who you used to be, that's not who you are today, you know. And just all the kind and decent things, and the stuff I don't deserve, but I'm thankful
Sure you
for.
do.
No, I don't think any of us deserve it, because we all have done really poor things. But the fact is, he is just to forgive us, like he promises.
Yeah.
And he will.
He showed up. I mean, he showed up in our lives. And I believe that if anybody's looking for him, if they're truly seeking him, anybody, it don't matter where they're at, I think that I think we're a great example of a blended family that Yahuah has worked through for going on 10 straight years, and
Yeah.
it's
Trying to reach
again,
other people.
it's scary, some of the things that he's revealed to us in our
Yeah.
other videos. I'm sure y'all, if y'all want to watch any of those, you should. But there's several videos that we cover these things along the way.
Yeah.
Like just the Sabbath keeping and how important it was, and what a
Getting
blessing
away
it's been
from
to our
the
family.
heathen
At times it feels like, we got
practices.
a lot to do. It's the Sabbath, but getting away from the heathenistic practices it was the best move we'd ever made, and
Yeah.
it's actually went through the church setup
Yeah.
that caused us to see the problems.
It was a stepping
seek
stone
him. It
for
was.
us.
It was a stepping
because
stone.
when we first got together, I was going to the church, and he's never been a big church person. He always believed in God, but he's like, But I dragged him to the church too, and I was like, well, if we're gonna date, then you're gonna have to go to the church, with me. And
Yeah.
so he did, and we started there, and
We did.
I think it can be a stepping stone for people, even if they're not, if you're supposed to hear something, you're going to hear what you're supposed to hear, regardless if the pastors are saying something right or wrong.
Yeah.
And so when we make the church videos, it's not that I'm trying to be mean. It's just like, okay, this was a stepping stone for me, because it is a sanctification process. You're not going to change overnight. Like I said, Brad and I were still making poor decisions when we first got together.
Absolutely.
And not that we still don't today, but we're much more careful and mindful today than we were back then. But it is definitely a place that I feel that I still need to go to, and that's why I went, and why I'm going to still be going.
You're talking
to
about
try,
the churches.
yeah, to the churches, to call out. We took almost a 10-year hiatus from even being around those, so we could get ourselves right and be sure.
Well, because we need
doctrine.
to get we need to get the correct doctrine
Take
from
the
the
log out of
Father
your own eye before you take the splinter
and
out
get
of
the
somebody
log out.
else.
You're exactly right. We can't go in there and try to talk to people not knowing what we're talking about, one.
Yeah.
And secondly, if we haven't been able to overcome that ourselves.
Yeah. And
sure.
letting people know, there is a judgment that we're supposed to use. It's righteous judgment, but we're not supposed to condemn. It's never our place to condemn and say, you are in fact going to hell. We can warn them and say, this is what it says, and I'm worried for you. I'm worried about you. I don't think you're spreading I don't think, but you're just not spreading the right message or whatever. But you have to come to a place that all starts with surrender. You have to, and that's where my change started, was when I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to go back to what I know, which is the church.
Sure.
And then whatever you have for me past that, I'm open. I'm here for it.
And wow, what a big...
Man, it was so big. Fighting 3 years. 3 years in courts, out of courts, in person,
Missing
over the
time with
phone,
your kids,
missing
all
time
the
with
stuff.
kids, losing that connection that you have with your kids, and then trying to reestablish it and build it back. And, it's very hard. It's very hard. And, but again, it all is to a purpose, because I can truly say that without going through all those, because I am hard-headed, like he warned the Israelites in Exodus, he's like, stop being so stiff-necked and, do what's right and yada yada. I am a hard-headed person, and I can truly sit here in all honesty and say, without all of these things that happened to and around me and affected, various family members, etc., I would not be who I am today or where I am today, and I likely wouldn't even be here today. So it all starts with surrender. And if that was the only takeaway out of this whole entire session, is surrender is your point one.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
That's what I have.
Praise Yah.
Praise Yah.
And somehow you were able to convince some of these same family members to join us.
It took a while.
It took a while. No, but
Patience.
Patience, right? So I mean, it helps us.
Patience.
It helps us think about where we were.
Though. I mean,
and forgive
you didn't
them,
even have to. You start with surrender, and then after surrender is forgiveness, because you can't reach anybody if you still have hatred in your heart for them.
That's a fact.
So.
And then there comes faith, and then there comes peace, and then all the things start falling in line.
Yep.
Oh, there's a little hiccup here. Let's fix that. Let's move forward.
And having the ability now to have mother-daughter conversations. We have a wonderful relationship now.
Yeah.
I'm happy to report. We have a wonderful relationship now. I'm still a little moody. She's still a little goofy. But we have a wonderful relationship. And I have a really good relationship with my sister, I feel, also. And I think she knows I hope she knows how much I love her, and being a part of this group is just awesome, and we're all learning together and
Yeah.
just trying to take it one bite at a time.
Yep. Yep. That was good. You did a fantastic job delivering that.
Sorry, it was so long-winded.
That's okay.
But it's still
No.
the shortened version. Wouldn't you guys like to see the long one?
No.
Brad's like, I promise you, I've heard the long one. You don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear that. No. No, I mean you covered it. You covered most of it. The only things that I would like to cover more of, and I think they're already in our videos. So if you want to go watch those, I'll put a couple of links up on the screen now for our previous times we spoke of these things. The Sabbath changes, the whoa, look at the preachers preaching.
Well, that all came after we got together.
It
That's
did.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We've
and
done
we
nothing but try to
just keep
turn
growing,
to him,
keep
learn,
growing.
and
Yeah. Learn
and
more,
I
ask
even
for more.
Wrote a couple of books, and
That
no,
was
they're
pretty
not
quick.
printed, so I'm not putting a shameless plug here because there is no plug to plug. They're not printed.
Well,
But I've written a couple of books about the differences between the doctrines and theologies and things of that nature.
well, and just to clarify, and we'll cover this, and whenever I go over my testimony, we'll run through mine a little faster than Jen's. But a lot of the things that we now know are factual, Yahuah given, Spirit given commandments was actually through my wife. Jennifer seeks some of this stuff out in a different way than I did, and I was hard-headed, stiff-necked, and stuck in my ways on certain things that I just didn't see, and I just couldn't see, and I had to take time to pray and chew it slowly and tell Jennifer she was wrong at times. I mean, and I'll go into some of that on mine, but it's very important sometimes to not just think how you think, and sometimes you have to listen to other believers and take what they're saying and at least balance it against the word. At least go back to the word and say, okay, let's test this exact thing and let's see about this. And that's kind of how I was able to come to the conclusions that Jenn was coming to. And there were some things maybe that I was able to sway her on, but
For sure.
the majority of my turnaround was through Jennifer getting these massive changes that were Southern Baptist preacher dad, going to the mega churches, singing
Dancing
the songs,
for money.
dancing for whatever she was doing throughout her life. She at least had an established thought pattern on what she thought church was and what she thought the things
What it should
were,
be,
what
anyway.
it should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was for her to just flip and be like, "Hey, wait a minute! I did research for 3 months on this particular topic, and I'm going to convince you of it." It was tough with a stiff-hearted neck or stiff heart. Heart of stone
Heart of stone and a stiff neck.
and a stiff neck. That thing, yeah, it was tough for me to bite that and be like, no, I'm not going to say that I've been wrong my whole life, when in all reality, I was wrong. And we'll cover that in mine. We'll do mine next, so that'll be get those two over with, and we'll start getting some of these other people that
Some
we
of the other
mentioned.
members of our
Yeah, we'll
congregation.
let them kind of tell their story and.
Yeah. And I'm a very talkative, long-winded person. It takes 3 hours to tell a 2-minute story. So don't expect
Well,
all of the videos to be as long as this one.
Fair. And I'll put these in a particular group on our website, so you can just click them for testimonies of our congregation, our house church, our gathering,
Yeah.
the people we're around, the people we're able to convince somehow to come read with us and study with us, because we don't necessarily lead this, we host it.
Yeah.
And we try our hardest to encourage everyone that comes to them to read for themselves.
Yep.
Have these conversations with y'all and pray about it. He'll show it to you.
He'll show
You're
you if
looking.
you're seeking. Yeah.
If you're just gonna sit back and let somebody preach to you all day long, then you're always gonna get what the man's preaching.
Yeah. Which, again, if that's all that you know for the moment, it can be a definite significant stepping stone for you.
Yeah.
It can be a good thing like it was for me for a time, but there are seasons in your life, and just like the changing seasons, things have to change. You have to change and grow as well.
That's right.
And so, maybe you're one of the people that is in a church right now, and you have been getting the word, but you're just not satisfied and you can't figure out why.
Yeah.
It's because Yahuah is probably calling you to search for him and to look deeper,
Yep.
and not just on surface issues. But yeah, so that's me. That's my life. That's my testimony. And now we have together 4 beautiful kids, I feel a really strong marriage,
Yeah.
and relationships built back, forgiveness, just all the things. And again, Brad wouldn't be the person he is today without his parents pushing him
For
about
sure.
forgiveness. Like
For sure.
so his parents are a really big influence in our lives as well.
Yep.
And just I am grateful for all the calm and the peace and the tranquility. For the most part, of course, life throws curveballs at you,
Sure.
But for the most part, all of the drama, it doesn't, I don't have to live in that anymore.
Yeah. We could be peaceful.
So, I mean, it's just,
With Yah, everything
peace.
can be exactly like it's supposed to be, and we have
even when it's
built
not.
a good life.
Yeah.
We really have, and we're going to keep pushing. We got a long ways to go. We got more things to do.
Yeah.
That's-
But we're excited. We hope that if you hear this testimony, that you will think about surrendering your life. And that's not saying the sinner's prayer. That's literally giving your life over to Him, searching for Him, reading, studying, being almost obsessively consumed with trying to learn as much as you can, and praying and just asking Him to show you what you're supposed to
Yep.
learn and what you're supposed to do and supposed to be. We all have different callings, and we all have different gifts that we're given to work as part of the body. And
Yep.
and so
Exactly.
we'll discuss some of Brad's gifts. Mine's obviously talking and researching.
Communication.
Yeah. Brad's is different than mine, but I think they complement.
Yeah. It works out well.
Yeah.
It really does. But we appreciate y'all's time. And
Thank you for letting me share with you.
Yeah. If you have any comments or questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Prepare the way.